Absolutely. So the main question, Robert, is I've been getting questions from my audience around what is the best investment in this era? Is it real estate? Is it gold? Is it oil? Is it the stock market? What do you think?
The best investment is in yourself, because I don't do well in stocks, so I shouldn't be in stocks. And I love real estate, so I'm good in real estate. But so it really is invest in what you love. And I'm an entrepreneur, so these are some of my best assets here. Is I write a book, right? And it's an asset for me. So it goes out to 50 countries all over the world. And every quarter I get a check, so the cash flows in. So it really is, what do you love? You should do what you love, but also invest in what you love. And that's the thing. So if I could explain it this way, maybe easier, is when you look at these, check this here, it's called, excuse me. This is a financial statement: income, expense, asset, liability. So this here is Rich Dad. This is what my rich dad thought was important, this piece of paper. And this is my poor dad over here. And what my poor dad thought was important was his college degree. You see, so it's always inside of you, whatever, whatever you think is important. So, So my poor dad was poor because he thought his PhD was everything, his piece of paper. But he thought this was important, income. So he always said to me, go to school, get your PhD, and get a high-paying job. Well, that's over here. And this was Rich Dad over here. Assets. So my poor dad was poor because that's all he focused on was his paycheck. And if you understand financial statements, the first thing that happens here is tax, and his money would just go to the tax department. Not very smart man, PhD, went to Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern, but this doesn't make you rich. See, this makes you rich here. So number one asset is a business. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is real estate. I love real estate. Next is paper. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I don't touch those things. I don't like them. And the last one is commodities. And that's gold, silver, oil, stuff like that. So this is what makes people rich. This doesn't. So that's really what I teach people is, really get your mind straight onto what is important to you. So for me, my business, which is the Rich Dad Company, is my number one asset. And then with that, I buy real estate. I love real estate. I have lots of real estate. And then I buy gold and silver and Bitcoin. So that's my strategy. Any questions on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been reading your book once again for the purpose of this call, and I always learn something new when I do that. So you talk about in this book, the realities that the rich are not taxed. It's the middle class, especially the educated upper income middle class who pays for the poor. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Well, you look at, if this is income, expense, asset, liability, here, tax. And when I invest in real estate, my income goes this way, tax-free. That's why he's not very well liked, many people, but he is a friend of mine, is Donald Trump. And the reason we're friends, this is what we teach. We used to teach people this. The reason we like real estate, and he's much better at real estate than me, is we use debt and taxes. So I don't have to have money to buy real estate because I just use debt. And the more debt I use, the less tax I pay. But over here, my poor dad gets a high income job. You know, his high income job here, his taxes keep going up. And then what happens is he'd buy himself, my poor dad buy himself a big house, and that money would go to the bank. And then in America, he had his retirement plan, and that was his asset, but that went to Wall Street. So that's why my poor dad was poor, even though he had a PhD here. So it's just a different mindset, a different skill set, different way of looking at things. And the tax then goes to the government. So my poor dad, kept saying to me, go back to school, get my PhD. And I never did, because I just took real estate courses. I took sales courses. I took entrepreneurs courses because I wanted to build businesses.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. So Robert, you always mention that you love debt. You said that I love debt because debt is money and I'm using other people's money to grow my assets. And there are, for sure that there are certain thought leaders in the financial education space that say, get rid of the debt, debt-free in 2 months, debt-free in 2 years. How do you speak to that?
I'm glad you asked that question because it's a valid question. I wish I knew how to, here we go. It goes to book number 2, the Rich Dad series. These are the 4 different people that make up the world of money. E stands for employee. S stands for self-employed or small business. B stands for big business, 500 employees or more, but it also stands for a brand. And this stands for insider. So most people who go to school, like my poor dad, this is poor dad here. He didn't have the skills for this side. And my mother wanted me to be a doctor here, like a specialist, but I'm not that smart. So I studied over here and over here. So one of the things I have to use on this side, number 1, is I have to be able to sell, but I must understand how to use debt. It's called raising capital. So number 1 skill of an entrepreneur is to raise capital. So I'm always at a bank learning how to raise capital to invest here, because I invest from the inside. These guys invest from the outside, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and they should live debt-free, but depends on your financial education. Mine's on this side. If you're on this side, you have no financial education, then you should live debt-free. It's just common sense. But on this side here, I'm probably, I'm 600 million in debt, but it's debt that makes me rich. These guys here cannot borrow $600 million because the bank won't give them the money anyway. But that's why the financial statement on this side, the income, the financial statement is everything. So I have a very strong financial statement. So I go to my banker and they'll give me all the bank I want. All the debt I want. Or I go to my investors and they'll loan me the money that I want. And then I pay no tax. That's why the rich are getting richer, but our schools will never teach us that. So what you're asking these people to think about is very important because, my mom and dad wanted me to stay here. And my rich dad said, move over here. So this takes a lot more education.
Yeah. So somebody is asking in the chat box, so how about the importance of net assets, Robert?
I don't believe in that shit. Depends. There's so many different ways, like somebody's.
You're on mute, Robert. Please unmute yourself.
It's off.
There you go. You're back.
Thank you. A lot of people want to be a millionaire, so they make $1 million in cash, in income, but they'll pay 60% in tax. It doesn't make sense to me. And then some people want to be net worth millionaires. So they have a $2 million house, and the house has $1 million debt on it. So they're a net worth millionaire. What I want is a $1 million in cash flow, tax-free. So there's different kinds of millionaires. So that's just financial education that, it's not that hard to know. But that's why I created this board game here, Cash Flow, is to really teach people to think more like these people, or you can go to school and think like these people. So over here, they say, cut up your credit cards, get out of debt, live debt free. That's good advice for them. But you'll never borrow $600 million so that way. Okay?
So true.
When I borrow $600 million, that's tax free.
That's so true. Thank you so much for that. So another question, Robert, and folks, go to the chat box, put in your questions for Robert. We will pick a few of them based on our time with Robert, and hopefully Robert will address them. So my next question, Robert, is that somewhere in your book you say, if you have little money and you want to be rich, you must first be focused, not balanced. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, I actually got that from a woman in Australia, and she was just really gorgeous. I don't think I'm on again, Christina.
No, you're there.
I'm on.
Yep.
We're good. We're good.
Hey.
Yeah.
There's this woman in Australia. She's very beautiful, and she owned an airlines. And she says, balanced people go nowhere. She said, if you want to be successful, you got to be either imbalanced this way or unbalanced this way. That's like when you ride a bicycle, you really can't stop, because the moment you stop, you lose your balance. So you've got to keep moving. And most people just want to be balanced, so they go nowhere. They fall off. So you've got to be moving. Anyway, so that's right now, during this Corona crisis thing, we're making more money than ever before, but I'm going to be planning for next year. And I have more than enough money. It has really nothing to do about money. It really has to do with how many people can I teach? How can I become a better teacher? So it's really not money. And most people are so desperate for money, it's sad. My poor dad, PhD stood for poor, helpless, and desperate. They're so desperate for money because they learned nothing about money. So it's sad, it really is sad. I have a lot of friends, they're not friends, but they're losing their businesses or losing their jobs and all this because they never learned about money. That's sad. It's really sad.
So many questions coming in the chat box. So Robert, one question keeps repeated in the chat box, and the folks are asking, how is COVID-19 affecting your way of thinking about investment? Are you still investing in real estate during these times? How do you think the whole investment, your view on investment can change during this time or post-COVID-19?
Well, my best friend just made $2 billion. He and I started off together. So he sold in January of 2020. And I never sell. I just keep acquiring more assets. So COVID hasn't affected me at all. I think COVID is fake personally. I don't think it's real. The disease is real, but it's overhyped. There's something really sad about that. But what I'm focusing on right now is gold, silver, and Bitcoin. And the reason for that is because of this COVID crisis, the Federal Reserve Bank has to keep printing money. And so that's why, people who are saving money are the biggest losers around, because of what they call quantitative easing and ZIRP. Quantitative easing is counterfeit money, and ZIRP is zero interest rate policy. So the IMF says that they're going to have to print $66 trillion this year, 66 worldwide. That means your money is not worth anything. A trillion, when I was a young man in the 60s and 70s, $1 million was a lot of money. And then by the 80s, it got to be $1 billion. Then in 2000, it was 100 billion. And then in 2008, it became $1 trillion. Now, let me tell you how much $1 trillion is. If you spent $1 a second, it would take you 35,000 years to spend $1 trillion. And they're now printing that by the hour. So I feel sorry for people who are saving money and working for money, because the central banks, the Federal Reserve Bank and the Bank of Canada, Bank of Japan, European Central Bank, they're printing money. So that's why I'm more, because they're printing money, I like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is getting harder. They can print less and less every year. And gold and silver, they can find less and less every year. So I'm investing in gold, silver, and Bitcoin because I don't trust my government. I don't trust the central banks. I think they're criminals personally. So that's why I'm buying as much gold and silver, no ETFs, real gold and silver, and Bitcoin. So that's what I'm investing in today.
Okay, that's awesome. So many folks have asked that question. Thank you for answering that. So another question is, what does it mean to invest in real estate leveraging OPM? Can you really purchase property without needing perfect credit and having a large down payment?
Yeah, you're never supposed to use your own money. On this side here, you don't use your own money. It's a different education. I was trained differently. So over here, my rich dad always said, only lazy people use their own money. And so that's why I meet so many people who say, I can't invest because I don't have money. Well, you're not supposed to use your own money anyway. You're supposed to use other people's money. So it's a different mindset and different skill set. It's no different. If I wanted to be a doctor, I'd have to study something different. Over here, I studied how to raise capital, how to ask for money all the time. Unfortunately, a lot of people over here in the S quadrant, what they think raising money is they sell. So they're always selling this, selling that, selling this. They're making money, but they have to do something for it. So I started off learning how to sell, but I had to move over here. And so I learned how to raise capital. That's all I do. I don't use my money. Okay, it's just different skill sets, different mindsets. It takes some practice. It took me about 10 years.
Okay. So Robert, I'm just curious. You are very productive. You do a lot of different things. You have multiple companies. You're a professional speaker. You create content for social media. What does your week look like? How are you so productive?
Well, I was when I graduated from school, and I went to school in New York, and then I joined the Marine Corps. And I went to military school and the Marine Corps. And the first word where I was taught is mission. What's your mission in life? So unlike people who go to business school, military school teaches us to be very spiritual. So we were taught spiritual words: mission, duty, honor, courage, code, respect, discipline. And when I was getting out of the Marine Corps, I went to business school for my MBA. I never heard one spiritual word at all. Nothing. It was about who could you screw to make the most money. And you look at what's happening today, many of the big corporations, they're only out there to screw people. You know, it's really horrible what's happening. So that's why the rioting in the streets right now and all this. And I think we've lost our moral conscience. You know, look at Pfizer and Merck and all these companies. The reason they want the vaccine is to make more money. You know, that they don't really, they kill more people. They're killing so many people today because they want the vaccine to come out so they can make money. So I think money has taken over our school system, in the brain at least. And then you have poor people who think capitalism is the problem. It's not capitalism, it's the corruption of capitalism. It's these big corporations like IBM and Xerox and Merck, those guys. They're the ones causing this crisis today. You know, we have the CEOs in America in the stock market. The Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank, is lending them money, so they buy their shares back. So it jacks the share price up in the high, and then it comes crashing down. So the CEOs get rich, but the employees lose their jobs and the shareholders lose everything. It's just criminal. So what drives me on, and the reason I created this cash flow game with my wife back in '96, is we have to teach people about money, or they don't have a prayer. They don't have a prayer today. 50% of Americans are broke. They need a paycheck. They're broke. I wrote this other book here, Who Stole My Pension? It just came out this year. Americans will not have a pension this year. They're gone. The idea of retirement is finished. And then I wrote this book here years ago. It's called Retire Young, Retire Rich. You know, why not become financially free? So that's what I teach. That's why I don't stop teaching, is because, you know, there was rioting right next to my house, and they're poor people. You know, 50% of Americans are poor. How is that? That's because our school system is corrupt. You look at in America, the student loan debt is now $1.7 trillion. These kids are going to school and they can't pay off those loans. And they can't find jobs that's going to amortize that debt. It's criminal what our school system's doing. So they're all people like my poor dad. You look at the Federal Reserve Bank, they're all PhDs. They don't know anything about money. They're not entrepreneurs. You know, so that's why I keep going. It has nothing to do with money. I got enough money. In fact, I was just on the phone trying to figure out where to move the rest of my money, because money keeps coming in. But, and I don't trust the dollar at all, so I'm always trying to move it. So anyway, that's why I keep going, is because I'm concerned. You know, most of my family is poor. They're master's degrees, PhDs, they're all poor. They're school teachers, you know, they got tenure, but the unions, but the pensions are broke. So it's going to get worse.
Yeah, okay. I just want to be mindful of time. We are almost at the top of the hour. I just have one more question to ask,
Sure.
Robert, and that's a question from the audience here. One of the members here is asking, what is the first step if we want to start with the right parts of the 4 quadrants, BNI? What's the first step for us to do?
Well, you know, my career is I can fly. You know, I was supposed to go fly for United Airlines, but I've been an employee. I've been making about 400, 500,000 a year, and I can do that a month now. But I didn't want to be a pilot because of that. So if I was going to come over here, that's when my rich dad said to me, I've got to learn how to sell. So that's why I got a job at Xerox, and I knocked on doors for 4 years. And then I was doing really badly. I wasn't selling that well. So I went back to my rich dad again, and I asked him, I said, I'm not doing well. So he asked me one quick question. He says, how many sales calls do you make a day? And I said, on a good day, maybe 3. He says, that's why you're not successful. He says, you've got to fail faster. So it's completely opposite of my poor dad. So I said, what do you mean I have to fail faster? He says, well, you got to make at least 30 sales calls a day. I went, 30? So I used my brain, and I got a job, not a job, I worked for free at night at a nonprofit charity, and I would dial for dollars. And I had a goal that was not like knocking on doors, I was just dialing my phone. And so my job was to fail 30 times a night. And the more I failed on the phones, the more money I made at Xerox. And so that's why people are poor today, because they went to school. You know, they're taught that failing means you're stupid when you should really be failing more. Secondarily, they teach you nothing about money. And then the third thing they teach you is if you cooperate, you're cheating. You know, so I would watch my poor dad, the poor guy. I don't know how much he was making, but he was always broke, and he would sit up late at night and try and figure out how to pay his bills all by himself. Whereas my rich dad, once a month he had a meeting with his accountants, his attorneys, and his friends, and they would all solve his financial problems as a team. So we all have financial problems. It's how do you solve them? So poor people try and solve them on their own, and that's why they're poor. It's really sad, because in school they think if you ask for help, you're stupid or you're cheating. So I have the best accountants, attorneys, the best, like Christina is always keeping me out of trouble and all this. So I can just keep doing what I'm doing the best at. So it is a team sport. And really that's why I think going to school is just wiping out millions of people, millions. They're so deeply in debt today, they're not going to get jobs, and they're screwed for life. So anyway, that's why I teach, that's why I recommend either network marketing or, going on, starting a YouTube station or something like this. But be an entrepreneur. Don't look for job security right now. If you're young, it's really a time to be adventurous. And if you're an entrepreneur, that cell phone, that iPhone, is the most powerful entrepreneur's tool ever created. Thank you, Christina. This here is, I can sit in Phoenix, where I'm at today, and I can make money all over the world. This came in 2007. So I'm making more money today than I ever have before, because I sit here, I'm on YouTube on this, I'm talking to you right now. I'm all over the world, and I'm making a fortune sitting here because of this thing. So this is the most powerful tool an entrepreneur ever had. But if you don't have it in your brain, this does you no good. It's really sad. I see all these homeless people. They all have cell phones, but they're poor because there's nothing in their head. So this cell phone's worthless. So that's why the people that are listening to your class right now, they're very smart people, because you're getting smarter and all this stuff. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So if you get smarter, then this gets smarter. But if you stay stupid, this stays stupid. Anyway, it's really it's a brave new world, but all the rules have changed with this COVID thing. And the rich are getting richer, the poor middle class are getting poorer, and they're rioting down the street from me. So it's really sad at some level. And it's because I went to school. My poor dad, the worst teachers in the world are poor people, because they teach you poor habits. It's sad, 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 sad. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I'd rather teach people to fish than give them fish. And right now, our schools and politicians like Joe Biden, Obama, and all those guys, they want to give people fish. Trump is my friend. I know people hate him, but we want to teach people to fish. And it's a different person who does that. It's these communist pinko slobs who are socialists who want to give poor people money, and it only keeps them poor longer. It doesn't solve the problem, makes the problem worse. But it's a free country. You can choose to be a socialist or a communist, or you can be a capitalist. But don't be a crooked capitalist, which is what many corporations are today.
Thank you so much, Robert, for that. You have inspired and educated a lot of us, including myself. This book really changed my life and the way I looked at the world of finances. It got me into real estate investing in the first place. So thank you so much for that. Lots of questions coming in, but we don't have time. Folks, show some love, show some appreciation for Robert Kiyosaki, the legend himself. Go to richdad.com. Check out his latest books and offerings. Lots of great stuff, as always. And you can see Christina and Robert, tons of comments coming in the chat box.
I could just say this much. I thank you for teaching, because that is the most noble profession right now. The more you teach, the more you learn. So all of your friends out there, teach, learn, play the cash flow game, study, cooperate, and that's how you get richer. You don't get richer with a PhD.
That's so true. I love your contrarian views. Keep shining bright. Keep being awesome. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Bless you, man.
Thank you. Take care.